Countdown? No, we don't get a countdown. We're live.
Mhm.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Affordable Homeownership Roundtable. We have a special guest, Ryan Lance from Ribbon Home. And this is a really, really interesting conversation. I'm excited to have this because we talk a lot on this podcast or on these videos about the challenges of entry-level home buyers trying to compete with all cash offers. And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a loan officer friend of mine in North Carolina, and he said, "Hey, have you heard of this Ribbon company? I've done 8 transactions with them." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. And tell me a little bit more about it." And he said, "Well, basically, the buyers, even though they're getting financing, it's an all cash offer." And so after I picked my chin up off the ground and dusted off my chin, I was like, okay, I gotta learn more about this because this just sounds well, quite frankly, it sounds too good to be true. So I was really reluctant about it, and I did some homework, and we reached out to Ribbon, and we got Ryan to be the victim here, to come out here and field our peppering of questions. But yeah, this is a really, really cool conversation. This is not something necessarily that's available nationwide to everybody, but the fact that thought leaders like Ribbon are doing this kind of thing means that not only are they trying to grow and expand, but there's going to be people that are going to see what they're doing and they're going to start looking at it. So, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Josh and Tino, as always, welcome to the Affordable Homeownership Roundtable. Tell us a little bit about Ribbon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Scott, for the intro and for having me on today. Definitely an opportunity, and love what you guys are up to. So thanks so much for having us on. Yeah, no, I was really excited to join the conversation today. And it's really interesting. I always like to ask the question, how did you hear about Ribbon? And Scott, it sounds like it was through the loan officer connection, which really speaks to how Ribbon's involvement in the ecosystem is, right? We are here to literally empower real estate professionals, mortgage brokers, mortgage bankers, lending professionals, ultimately with our cash solutions. And probably before I speak a little bit deeper on Ribbon, it'd be good to set the table with some context on why Ribbon was created and some of the problems that we're seeing in the market, which is, Scott, we like to give a stat that most recently put out across all the major metros. I think 1 in every 3 offers was literally cash. And so we've got everyday home buyers and families that are actively shopping to achieve home ownership, literally coming up against that barrier and hitting that challenge. And so we really have pride ourselves in creating the right cash solutions that ultimately help the client, help the consumer trying to achieve home ownership, make that much more possible, and doing all of that through their real estate professional and through their loan officer. I've heard in the past that, completing a real estate transaction is almost like a minor miracle. And so you've got to have your advisor in your back pocket, whether that's your real estate professional and your loan officer. But with where the state of the market is today, you've got to have the cash to actually be able to compete. And so we see so many buyers now that are mortgage eligible, right? They're approved for financing, but how do they actually go out and compete? And I think we just saw even articles today about how, the U.S. is just truly on the brink of becoming a nation of renters, right? There's so much money that has flooded into the markets from Wall Street and larger institutions, and it's really kind of destabilized the entire market. And so our cash products, they're really focused on helping the everyday family upgrade, bid, and win, and get closer from being a home buyer to actually a homeowner.
So explain this a little bit, kind of really the kind of the nuts and bolts of it, because the way that it was explained to me as the loan officer is he had them approved and he ended up closing the loan, but he was able to make it, but the agent was able to make an all cash offer that the buyer accepted. And I think when we were kind of doing our review call, we were joking around about, the inventory there's so little inventory that the agent is taking all of the offers, putting it on an Excel spreadsheet and sorting it by down payment. So all cash offers are all at the top, and everybody with financing is at the bottom of the spreadsheet. The owner doesn't even get a chance to look at it. So I pulled up your website on the screen here if you have any visuals, but kind of walk us through a little bit. How am I making, as a loan officer, how am I representing a buyer making an all cash offer, but I'm still closing the loan for it?
Yeah, totally. So let's kind of break that down. And I think building off of your story will help paint that picture, which is if we were to all put ourselves in the shoes of a seller and a listing agent in today's market, they're going to look at those offers, right? And they're immediately looking for where is cash and where's the most certain guaranteed to close offer in the stack. And so that's really important, the certainty when a buyer makes an offer and a seller is reviewing the offer, they want to know which one's going to close on time, and ultimately earn the most amount of net proceeds. And so what we're truly building towards is when a buyer and a seller agree on an offer and it's wrapped with ribbon, we literally attach what we call a ribbon addendum to a contract. That addendum is going to kill the contingencies, financial, appraisal, home sale, all question marks, right? That may persuade a seller or lead a seller to taking a different offer. So based on that addendum, we can literally remove the FHA badge, the conventional badge, the USDA badge, and turn that everyday family into a cash buyer that states, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we've got a cash offer, a cash-backed offer for you that has a guaranteed closing. And so to that point about building certainty around the transaction, when a buyer and a seller agree on a ribbon offer, and let's say they negotiate like a 7-day inspection period, we will literally on day 8 guarantee the close. So someone's going to buy the house, either buyer or seller. That allows sellers and listing agents to really sleep great at night because they know, okay, my home is going to go to a local home buyer, right, to make it their future family home. We're not contingent upon appraisal. We're not contingent upon financing. And I can pack my bags, schedule my moving trucks. I know on March 10th, let's say, right, on closing day, this thing's going to close. So the loan officer was exactly right. The way the program works is you can cash back your offer with ribbon, take those question marks off the contract, give the seller what they want, which is a guaranteed close, and ultimately show up with your financing and your choice of lender. That's what we call internally, we like to say our Ribbon Boost product, giving you the best competitive edge and actually winning.
And Ryan, so everyone can see the benefit of that. I'm saying, okay, I have my offer, but I'm a 3.5% down FHA. I can't compete with giant down payments, cash offers, investors, that type of stuff, because it's not in a seller's eye, it's not a guaranteed close. So what you guys are saying is we're going to guarantee your close. So as long as all you did is guarantee my close, I closed the way I said I was going to in my offer, basically you guys are charging 1% to have that guarantee in place if you don't have to come in with your cash and close it. And then if something goes sideways, you guys will come in and close this cash. So the seller, it's a true guarantee. The seller gets what they were guaranteed, but you guys truly, if something falls apart, goes sideways, come in at the 11th hour with your cash and an on-time closing. Is that an accurate way of looking at it?
Yeah, Josh, you nailed it. And so that how the program effectively works is if financing were to be delayed, right, on 3 days prior to closing, we would literally step in. We would buy the new home with Ribbon's cash. That client could then move into the new house, and they'll have up to 180 days or 6 months to buy back from Ribbon, and they'll always buy back for the exact same price with their choice of lender, right, and loan officer. And so that's also where we really speak closely to consumers is we're not upcharging the house. We're not marking it up. We're selling it back to them. And given today's market, many times there's even built-in equity on some of these properties. And so
after 6 months, yeah.
Right.
Well,
in today's market.
Here's the way I look at it is if I have an FHA buyer, we win bidding wars with FHA buyers. It's hard. It's arm wrestling, and you don't win a lot of them. So you have the option of, not the option, potential consequences of not using the program would be you don't get the house you really want, and you end up getting one that was a little less of a perfect fit for you, or you win the bidding war by offering the most money out of pocket. So again, going back to as long as you're able to close with your lender, getting that guarantee costs you 1%. So let's use an example of a $400,000 loan. It costs you $4,000. What I can tell people from our experience, I'm here in California. You guys don't operate in California. Our low end purchases in Southern California are $700,000 and $800,000. You can easily have a property go 3-4% over list price. Whereas if you can keep that down and mitigate some of that bidding and having to overbid to win, it's a good option for the current market and the problems that we're seeing. I don't want to pivot and go a completely different direction on you, but I think most folks watching have a pretty solid handle on how this can help someone who's a first-time buyer or doesn't have a house to sell and step in. Another tool that you guys are offering is for the person who doesn't want to sell their house, have nowhere to live, and then have to go out and get into the bidding wars. You also have a tool that will help them in that regard as well. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, Josh. So we consider that the freedom to buy before you sell. And right now, if you're a client listening to today's kind of call, you really are facing the chicken and the egg dilemma, right? We know the minute you put your current house on the market, you should be expecting showings and multiple offers, which is great, fantastic. But now where are you going to go? And if you're not able to find and locate that property in time, now you're at risk of like moving twice, paying temporary housing, storage, etc. I was literally just on with a lender partner a few moments ago, and we had a story of a client moving from Tennessee to Texas. And this client was up against a time crunch for a job and relocation to Texas. So the client actually looked at potentially receiving an iBuyer offer, right? A quick cash guaranteed type of closing offer on her home to sell in Tennessee. And that offer came in at, I believe it was in the lower 300s. And immediately our lender partner, via their cash advantage program, reached out to the client because they had kind of been involved in helping them obtain financing in Texas and said, hey, where do you think? They had looked at some comps with some of the real estate partners, and those comps showed that house in Tennessee could most likely go in like the upper 300s. So then they began to talk to them about the cash advantage program powered by Ribbon. And long story short, we were able to help that client moving from Tennessee to Texas not have to take the quick, convenient offer. Rather, they were able to go to the open market with their current house, find a local home buyer, obtain the max amount of proceeds on it, and they actually used Ribbon to nail down their Texas property. And so we were going to step in, buy Texas while she worked to reserve and sell Tennessee for as much as possible. And in Texas, our Ribbon reserve fee is 2%. That client was able to sell Tennessee, I believe it was for like $398 versus $320, $324, $320 offer from an iBuyer. Wow. We're talking, $40,000-$50,000 of dollars that a 2.4 or 2% Ribbon fee was totally well worth it in the long scheme of things for that client moving from one house to the other. And so what we're really preaching to the market is there's a way to have guarantee and certainty in a transaction without having to sacrifice equity and proceeds. You just need a trusted real estate professional in your back pocket and a loan officer to be able to navigate you through that, complemented with the Ribbon program.
Ryan, explain a little bit again on how that transaction went, that the person was able to buy in Texas, why that 2%. Just get a little bit clearer on that, please, so folks can.
Yeah, totally. So this was a client with a home to sell in Tennessee, buying in Texas.
Right.
That client looked at taking a quick cash offer in Tennessee because she needed the funds ultimately to buy in Texas.
Right.
So she had to sell in order to buy. And so in doing that, then she would have sacrificed how much she could have actually earned on the Tennessee property. Rather, the Ribbon program came to her and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, instead of taking a quick cash offer, we'll help you go buy your new house in Texas. You can move into it, right? Know where you're going to go, win it. And then she immediately began to sell her Tennessee property when she had already moved out of it. And she was able to sell Tennessee on the open market for, I believe it was $40,000 or $50,000 more than what the quick cash guaranteed offer was going to be.
And then that financing to buy her home from you at the price that you guys had purchased at, correct?
Exactly. So as soon as she sold Tennessee, she then turned around, knocked on her door and said, hey, I sold my property in Tennessee for X much more. I'm now ready to work with my lender to buy back from Ribbon. And she did in Texas for the exact same price that we reserved it on her behalf.
And Tino, in the interim, you're renting from Ribbon. Ribbon is buying that house, paying cash for it, and you're going to rent from them for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, up to 180 while you complete the other sale, put your financing in place to purchase the one that they bought for you. So I think it's kind of important to close the loop here. Everyone's always dubious and they go, well, I mean, they're trying to make a profit. Well, yes, unless you have a rich uncle who has millions of dollars sitting in the bank to do this for you. This is a business that exists. They have access to capital and they're willing to put that capital to work to assist you. And there's a small fee for it. So in the markets that you guys operate in, those are hot markets, hot price points. And it can absolutely save you money. And going back to, Ryan, what you had said is working with a trusted real estate advisor, working with a mortgage expert. Hopefully you're talking to someone that's good with the spreadsheet that can pencil these things out and show you there's a small cost to this. Here's the cost to not doing this. In a different type of market, this wouldn't be as valuable of a product, but in the current market, both of these options are very valuable.
Yeah.
For the foreseeable future too. I think there was a report came out last week or earlier this week, and there's something like less than 250,000 homes available inventory nationwide right now. It's like less than 200,000 homes and there's like the demand is like for 6 million or something like that. It's crazy. One thing I wanted to build on what you just said, Josh, because it's really smart, is yes, there's a cost, but there's a term called the cost of waiting. If you're buying homes, like if I don't buy today, how much might interest rates go up? How much might home prices go up? 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. But there's also the cost of not waiting, which is selling your house on an iBuyer and cutting off tens of thousands of dollars worth of equity. So that while it does seem like a cost, quite frankly, my concern or my reluctance was it's not that much of a cost at all for what you're able to facilitate. Because if you didn't have that and you were just making offers, there's a good chance that when you made your first offer and you got your offer accepted, you probably ended up paying more than a point for what that you could have got your offer accepted 6 months ago when you started making offers. It's like you said, Josh, it's kind of a perfect storm for a solution like this. And it doesn't seem like this need's going to go away anytime soon.
Scott, think about it this way. We do 95% of our loans with 0 points or with a lender credit. So if you look at it this way, if we close the loan for the client, you're paying 1%, you're paying a point. So I don't like that. I don't like having an additional 1% fee involved in the transaction, but you actually have to be able to quantify what it looks like if you don't use it. How much longer are you looking? So in California, other than Central California, we don't really have those $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 price points. But if the market goes up 1% in the 2 to 3 months while you're out shopping for a home, it's covered itself. So you have to be able to quantify it and just know what it means. And some things are not quantifiable. If you go out and you get into 10 bidding wars and you're only going to win one in a best case scenario, what are the odds that one house is the ideal home of those 10 that you wanted? It might be the 5th or the 7th or your 10th favorite of all of those. That's a cost you can't quantify. So long way of saying, Ryan, when you guys are ready to pilot California, you guys just let me know, because I would say 50-60% of our clients, when presented with the numbers and in a way to quantify and analyze it properly, would go, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like paying this 1% fee. But I certainly don't like the other alternative. The big thing we're looking at, people accuse mortgage and real estate professionals of cheerleading the market. So when we say, hey, projections are for home values to go up 6% next year, they go, well, that's self-serving. Well, in this instance, you have that whole worry or concern about people jumping into the market when they're not quite ready or not stable enough to, based out of fear of missing out. Well, I'm sure you guys saw the figures that nationwide, so it's always tricky applying nationwide numbers when everyone is in an individual market, but Zillow was predicting 11.7% increases nationwide, and we're like, well, that's pretty rough considering we were up 17 or 18% last year, but at least it's moderating. The hope would be that it would moderate to 3, 4, 5, 6%. They just revised their numbers to 16%. So it's, again, that's more than 1% a month that home values are expected to go up in the next year. So when you run those numbers that way, it's once you have decided that you are in a position to buy, you're stable, your family situation, your income situation, you have the savings, doing it sooner rather than later makes sense. And this makes it much more likely that once you jump into the market, that you're going to be able to get a transaction under contract. And you guys, the last thing I would say, as I'm going through in my head, you have to have a mortgage professional, because we're really the numbers people versus the realtor.
Mhm.
You have to have a mortgage professional that can run those numbers for you, but you need a realtor who's out talking to the listing agent and presenting the offer, that gets the program and can understand how to express that to the seller's agent and the seller, that like, no, this isn't cash, but I'm bringing you cash. Like, it's guaranteed as good as the cash is. Like, a cash buyer can back out at a certain point in the transaction. Your situation is contractually obligating you to close that transaction. So if you're in one of the states that Ribbon operates in and you want to use this, make sure you're working with a real estate pro that can explain the numbers and walk you through it. But equally importantly, if not more importantly, a real estate professional that understands the program and can explain it to the listing agent and the seller.
Yeah, and that's a good way to bring this home. First of all, Jennifer Lego is listening live on YouTube, and she wanted to say hello.
I'm starting to think that Jennifer sees everything real estate related anywhere on social media.
She's an old friend. So let's kind of bring this home. We're coming up to the bottom of the hour. So while we're trying to build awareness for consumers about this, and consumers can get information at ribbonhome.com. That's correct? And but the reality is Ribbon is making the agreement with the loan officer and the real estate agent.
That's
the
it.
consumer, you as the home buyer or the home seller, are not working with them directly. And I think, to Josh's point, build that relationship with the loan officer, have the loan officer reach out to Ribbon, build that relationship, figure out what that is, and have the loan officer try to explain that to the real estate agent. It's going to be a lot easier than you as the consumer, and you as the consumer can't work with Ribbon directly. So I would go through my loan officer, because they're the numbers people. They're going to be able to make this work. They're going to show you exactly what the cost is, exactly what the breakdown is. Listen, everything has a cost, but making an informed and educated decision is priceless. Just going into this stuff willy-nilly and trying to compete against everybody is just crazy. Ryan, you two things I want to know from you. What's the maximum loan amount that you guys will lend, and what states is your program available in right now?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So right now we are purchasing up to $700,000 is on the max purchase price. We see a really clear pathway into a higher amount, potentially into like the $1 million range. So stay tuned to ribbonhome.com for more updates on the buy box. We understand, with just given the appreciation in some of these major metros, we want to be able to be as applicable as possible to real estate professionals and clients who need to be able to compete in those spaces. So
you can almost compete in the studio condo space in California. You're getting there.
Yeah, we're climbing. One last thing I want to add, just to piggyback off of Josh's note on the kind of the fee structure. So, we've also seen, you heard me talk about the move-up buyer and how we help that client, earn way more net proceeds to help totally make sense on why the reserve made it possible for the client. But also, we've seen a lot of offers go out that maybe aren't necessarily the highest offer, but they're the strongest offer. And so by being able to use cash, can you use cash to earn, I'll call it a discount of having to go so extremely high above while also having to remove the appraisal contingency? We're seeing buyers being able to bid and win. And so, Josh, you nailed it. Number one, what's the opportunity of waiting, the cost of waiting? And number two, can you use cash to actually earn a discount on your property? We feel like is totally here and here to stay. And then as the market transitions, we've all seen ebbs and flows, right? We believe that cash is no longer really an option. It's more of a necessity. And home
Right.
sellers will want to
Seems like it.
receive, guaranteed to close types of cash offers via Ribbon program.
And for anybody watching this, what states are you operating in? What states is your program available in right now?
Today it's and on ribbonhome.com, if you go to markets, you'll be able to find where our footprint is. It's mainly the Southeast today, which is South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Alabama, and Tennessee. More to come on our roadmap. We've got very aggressive expansion plans. So coming to a market to you probably very soon here in 2022.
Okay,
and Josh Lewis gets the private beta for California to see how you guys like it and how it works.
No, I've got that in Florida.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
But the beautiful part about this right now is that the price points in which they're looking at right now, that's where the huge competition
That's needed
for cash, because those cash buyers are going in and souping up those properties, and the poor folks that could do better by buying are literally forced to go back and rent those properties for a higher monthly payment than they would have had they bought. So you're all dead on the points that you've touched. It's just, this is a wonderful opportunity to take the common person and help them compete against the cash buyers. Again, we are for 100% sustainable home ownership. This is a wonderful way to try to get into it. If you can, and please do, go to myaha.com and become a part of America's Homeowner Alliance. We want to make sure that there is home ownership for all folks in America. And we're having such a difficult time bringing these kinds of solutions to you is so important. There are many other issues to be faced, but we can't do it alone. We have to have the voice of the people to go to Congress and to go to the folks who are in the regulating agencies and help them understand what's happening to us so that we can solve it for the better. Join
please join that. It is 100% free, and then you've got people like us and Tino and Phil, who's not here, and Brian and Courtney. A lot of us industry insiders. We consumers don't always know why it's so hard out there. And they're just kind of victims of whatever the environment is. But we can make a difference. We can put pressure on policymakers. We can impact change. We can affect change. And we can discover things like Ribbon Home in our search, as we're kind of, think tanking about what do we do about all of these cash offers. Something like this comes on the radar, and we're able to hopefully bring a little bit more exposure to it and get it out there a little bit more so that people can see it. So thank you so much. We'll end here with Robert Toffel. Golden rule: cash is still king. At 100% is still king. And but right now there's a new king, and the king is Ribbon Home. If you don't have your own cash, use somebody else's, and go in there with the same clout and the same the same purchasing power. So Ryan, thank you so much. Josh, Tino, as always, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. If anybody wants any information, any consumers want any information about this, go to ribbonhome.com. It's in the show notes where you're seeing this on YouTube or Facebook or on my LinkedIn. And that's it. Thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And we will see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Take care, folks.
Guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.